And we're back. Welcome back to the Auto Authorities Podcast. My name is Jay, and we have an incredible show for you today because we have an insider view. And we have one of our favorite guests, Gerald Bentley, and he is actually at a dealership right now, and he is going to give us all the skinny of what's going on in this world because I know we all want to know, and everything that we read, we can't believe it. So we're getting ready to do this. You ready to do this, Gerald?
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
do it.
Have you ever felt like you were taken for a ride while buying, selling, or repairing your car? Well, not anymore. I'm Jay, and this is the podcast to tell you what to watch out for, whether you are buying, selling, or repairing your car. With over 26 years of automotive experience, we are the Auto Authorities. This podcast is sponsored by iAutoAgent.com. We're real estate agents for cars.
Welcome back to the Auto Authorities Podcast. My name is Jay, and before we get going and meeting Gerald Bentley, I would like to thank our sponsor, iAutoAgent, iAutoAgent.com. They are real estate agents for people's cars. If you don't want to go to the dealership and trade your car in, and you don't want to go meet strange people at strange places, they will sell your car. They will market, they will list, they will show your car at, yes, no cost to you. And they will help you navigate the entire buying process for you. They will take care of everything from A to Z, do all the heavy lifting, do all the communications with the dealers, schedule you all your test drives, help you with financing, and keep you in control the whole time, and you don't have to move forward until you approve the deal. And also, if you are just tuning in and you're wondering, how do you watch the Auto Authorities Podcast? Well, you can watch it in several different ways. Number one, you can watch it live on the Facebook group page, the Auto Authorities Podcast, at 12 p.m. Central Time, and that is on Tuesday. If you still want to watch us, but you don't want to watch us live, you can watch us on YouTube, the Auto Authorities YouTube page. Just click the subscribe button in the right corner or the notifications button. And of course, if you're just driving to work and you just want to hear what's going on, the real thing, without any type of edits or anything raw and uncut, then you can just go to iTunes or Pandora or Amazon, or there's 19 other different channels. And you can also find them all on the AutoAuthorities.com. That's the AutoAuthorities.com. And today I would like to introduce you to Gerald Bentley. And this guy is an absolute savant in the car industry. He knows it inside and out. Sometimes I don't agree with him, but that's okay. That's what's going to be so much fun about this. And he's going to let us know what is really, really going on in this industry. Gerald, welcome back.
Hey, thanks.
It is awesome.
Heck of an intro.
So yeah. So Gerald, tell us a little bit about your background for those of the listeners that don't know you. Tell us about your background. What have you done? What are you doing now?
Oh, sure. Well, quite varied. I went from sports casting to being a buyer for Nordstrom's to being a manager for Harris Casino for a little while. And then I've been a car sales manager for over 20 years now. And I also do auto sales consulting. And as you can tell by the wrestling belts back there, I host pro wrestling talk shows as well for a couple of different promotions out in the West.
Yeah,
so
you have
a little bit varied. Yeah,
you have a really cool thing going with that. That's for sure. So you've been doing this over 20 years, and you currently work. Are you able to tell us where you work, or the type of vehicle that you sell?
Import dealerships. And then I talk with and work with dealerships, around the country in terms of sales consulting. So, a pretty wide range of what's going on. And it's still a changing time. Things aren't back to normal by any means.
Oh, no. Far from it. In fact, that's what we're going to talk about today. Really what I want to get into, because I've been reading so much about what like the market, and I really would like to start with new cars first, because I know this is something that we should be very, very happy that Gerald's here, because a lot of this stuff that I read online, I'm just wondering what's real and what's not. Give me give me kind of what your take is of the new car market, where it was, where it's going, and why.
Well, I think it's really going to be about the same in 2023 as it was in 2022. You may see a little tick up in certain models. There's some domestic cars. If you go by domestic dealerships wherever you're at in the country, the lots are going to look relatively full. And that's true until you take a look just below the surface. At Ford dealerships, you're going to see a bunch of base Escapes and a bunch of base F-150s, really nothing else. If you go to a Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram dealership, you'll see a lot of base Rams and a lot of Jeep Gladiators and Wagoneers, and really nothing else. Then if you get into the import brands, Honda, Toyota, Subaru, virtually nothing. So it's changing, but it's not open by any means. If you're looking for a desirable car, if you want a Ford Bronco, if you want a Chevy Equinox Premier, you want a Chevy Trailblazer, Toyota RAV4, anything that's a hybrid, your odds of walking into a dealership anywhere in the country and finding it today are probably about none. If you're okay getting a base rental car ready, front wheel drive, Ford Escape SE in white, you can get that. But that's about it.
Wow. So I think what I'm hearing, and is the reason why there's base model vehicles, is it because of the chip shortage? They can't put the options on these cars like they were before.
I think so. It's because they can produce them, they can make them cheaply and crank them out there. And somebody's going to buy them. I mean, there's a need for work trucks. That's fine. But the cars that people are really looking to buy, really want to buy, they're just not out there. Toyota Siennas, Honda Odyssey are the single most searched for vehicles right now online, and they're virtually non-existent. And you saw that Toyota was the number one auto seller in America. They dropped. GM took that over. And it wasn't because GM lit it up. It was a battle of attrition. They just made slightly more cars than Toyota did. Because GM dealers are by no means satisfied with what they have on the lot, because the Chevy Trailblazer was a good car. It was a good model, and it came out, was really popular. People wanted it, and now they can't get it. Ford Broncos, Ford Mavericks, you may be looking at a 1.5 year delay to get the one you want specifically. And if you're trying to order a car at a Toyota, a Honda, or a Subaru dealership, you can't. They're not even taking dealerships orders. They're making whatever they make, and that's it, period. So
say that again. That was a very powerful statement. You can't even order.
you can't order basically any import brand. They're not going to take an order. It's not an option. They're not taking orders from the dealership, so they're definitely not going to take orders from the customer.
So they're just basically giving the dealerships whatever they want, and they're like, hey,
they get whatever they're able to make. Yeah, some decontented. Even with the domestic GM, the Silverado had cylinder deactivation, and I think it started in 19, where it would, in order to save fuel economy, cut it down to a 4-cylinder car.
Yeah, I remember.
That was decontented on most cars last year. They decontented blind spot monitors. A lot of brands are only sending you one key now because they're trying to save the chips. So it's not back to normal by any means. I mean, there's dealerships that should have 300 new cars on the ground right now, based on historical averages, because this is when you start building up for the selling season.
Right.
The selling season in most of the country kind of coincides with baseball. You're going to have your peak inventory when spring training starts.
Right.
Then opening day, that's when most of the dealerships are loaded. That's when your big dealerships have 600 new cars. Your average size dealerships have 300 new cars. you start building that inventory now. And you can look at dealerships that should have 300, 400 cars. They have 10 or 15, maybe. Dealerships that should have 700, they may have 40 or 50. Beaver Toyota, which is one of the bigger Toyota dealerships in the country, they're outside of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
They would probably normally carry like 700 new cars. They have 87.
Holy.
So that's kind of what you're looking at. And that's true for, virtually every import brand. And, I think most really desirable domestic vehicles. The Jeep Gladiator is the one that kind of jumps out at you as being an exception, but that's because it had a hot start and then really slowed down when people realized, well, hey, I can't tow anything with this, and it's got a small bed. So now they're just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
Look at some of the big Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram dealerships. They may have 40 or 50 2022 Jeep Gladiators on their lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get a Gladiator. Those are available.
I've heard that. I've heard
Yeah.
that they have a plethora of Gladiators, and one of my closest business colleagues came to me. He's like, "Hey, I've got a Gladiator. I'm getting ready to sell." I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
well, there's always a value to everything, but always like
Yeah.
it's got this and it's got this and it's got this." I'm like, mm-hmm. And there's a zillion of these cars.
Yeah, depending on where you live in the country, you're probably well served to take that to a CarMax and let them, or to an iAuto agent and let you shop it around the country to see
Right.
if there's somebody in a different part of the country that's going to dial in on it, because going to your local dealership, that's not going to be a good end for you.
No, this is this is really interesting. I don't even know. Like, so basically what I'm hearing is the market is probably going to stay very similar to like it was last year in the new car market. One of the things that was really surprising to me, and I want to see what your thoughts are on this. So we have a vehicle finder program where we help people buy vehicles nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody came to us. They were working with one of my agents, and they were looking for a Kia Telluride. It was, to my knowledge, that these things were 4 to 6 month wait to get one. And our client, unfortunately, went behind our back, found a new one. There were 5 of them on the lot locally here in St. Louis.
Really?
Bought one, and it was like, what? There were 5, but there were only 5. Like, there used, obviously in the old days, we would see 30 of those cars or more, or
And
50.
how much did they pay for the Telluride?
They only paid MSRP.
Really? That's surprising.
I know. My mind was blown. And so I wanted to see what your thoughts were today, because I'm thinking, is this thing breaking where we're going to find some, I guess we can find a few scragglers, but I also heard that people were backing out of their orders because the interest rates are going up.
Some people are backing out. You're getting some of that. And quite honestly, some dealerships just aren't doing a good job of being visible. It used to be, say, I don't know, 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
you were at a decent sized dealership, you're a salesperson, you'd go in on a Saturday, and if you sold less than 4 cars on that Saturday, you'd go home disgusted if you were really good at it, because you knew you missed opportunities. You probably talked to 15 people, because the lot would be flooded from the minute you opened to the minute you closed. And out of those 15 people, 16 people, you'd hope you'd close 30, 25%. That's your 4 or 5 sales.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't. The number of cars dealerships sell have stayed about the same, but the number of visits has absolutely plummeted because of the internet. The internet being able to shop the cars, being able to see 360 photos, being able to get yourself pre-approved, do credit pre-qualification, soft pull credits on sites that have Cap 1 financing on it. It's limited all those trips to the dealership down to people going to the dealership because they see the car they want. If everything works out, that's where I want to buy it. That's where they go. Most people don't go to more than 2 dealerships anymore. It used to be 7 or 8.
No.
So
people,
if you have 5 or 6 of a super desirable car on your lot, from the dealership's perspective, that's when that dealership needs to look in the mirror, because the problem's not the market. The problem's you. Maybe they're not visible enough. Maybe they're not going through processes and doing a good job of selling the car. Maybe they're being evasive or turning customers off, but there's something wrong, because that shouldn't happen. I mean, if there's a dealership somewhere that has 5 Siennas or 5 Odysseys or 5 Hyundai Palisades sitting on their lot, that's not good. That means you did a really, really, really bad job somewhere along the way, and something's majorly broken, because it shouldn't happen.
That's exactly right. And if anybody's just tuning in, we are talking with one of our very, very favorite guests, Gerald Bentley, and he is an absolute expert in this business. He is in the business right now. So we're getting an insider view of what is going on out there with the new car market. And we're just getting ready to go into the used car market, because that's really what I want to dig into. And what I'd like everybody to do, whoever's listening, please leave your comments below. Tell us what your experience was. If you've recently bought a car, we'd like to hear. Was it easy to find? Was it hard to find? And then also, if you have any questions specifically for Gerald or myself, just leave them in the comments below. You can also go to the AutoAuthorities.com. That's the AutoAuthorities.com. Leave a message. We will personally respond to that message. We want to give you the best information possible. And Gerald, I really want to get into the used cars now that we've talked about the new cars.
Sure.
What is going on with the used car market? I have my opinions.
I think it's a little bit of an overreaction, just based on what I said with the new cars. But I think you see, a couple of things colliding. The interest rates going up obviously hurts. There was some really good information on LinkedIn talking about how CarMax built up an inventory of SUVs and trucks. Their average price was up over $40,000. And last quarter, their profit margin dropped 86%, because surprisingly, the average used car customer looking for the $18,000 to $24,000 car, which hasn't changed in 20 years, wasn't excited about a whole lot of $40,000 cars, now that the average interest rate that you get on a used car is up over 7. I mean, you're talking about a $700 a month payment. You worked in dealerships for years. What does everybody say they want their payment to be on a used car?
Really $200 a month, but then it went to $250 and maybe $300.
Yeah, but never more than $350. Now,
No.
if you have your lot filled with mostly cars that are going to be a payment of between $600 to $750, that's a really, really small universe of people that are willing to buy those. And as new car production hasn't stopped dead. I mean, you can get them, you just have to wait. Don't you think people are going to say, whoa, hang on. Why do I want to pay more than new sticker to get this used car with 30,000 miles when I can wait a month or 2 months and get the brand new one exactly like I want? I don't. So those cars it's just a bloodbath on those. They're going to take a beating. And then you add in, it's the end of the year, so the end of the calendar year, which always has a little bit of a drop. I mean, I've noticed just looking at books about a $4,500 to $6,000 drop on any used car priced over $30,000 in just the last couple months.
It's exactly right. And that's exactly what I'm seeing too, is that the market is crashing right now. It's almost getting probably really closer back to normal in a sense, because it was so high when we first started. When we brought you on last time, used cars were more money than new cars.
Yeah.
And now you were seeing
selling everyone you get.
But what's interesting of what you said, and this is very true, is that people are looking for that lower payment. So what's not being affected is those lower price cars, your $10,000 cars, under 15 grand, that they're still staying very stagnant, and they're not dropping.
They're not moving. They're going to go up. And that's if you can find one. Because the other thing that's a problem, there aren't many of those, and there aren't many new ones coming. It kind of ties into new cars again too. Take a look at car lots. Drive around if you're just out. Look at Nissan lots. Do you see any Sentras? Look at Toyota lots. Do you see any Corollas? At Honda, do you see Civics? At Hyundai, do you see Elantras? Do you see Fortes at Kia? You don't. They're technically making them, but they're not making money.
Right.
They're making SUVs.
And
because SUVs make money. So you're bottoming out the pool of cars that are available in that price range. And the rental car companies, who are the number one provider of used cars to dealerships, because the rental car companies buy them, they run them to 50,000, and then the dealerships buy them. They don't have them either because they're in a shortage going back 3 years now of not getting enough cars.
Yep.
So it's come down probably, like you said, to about where it should have been. But now I think the used cars are going to start creeping up again because there's just not enough of them.
Interesting. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. One of the things that I'm seeing is there's a tons of repossessions happening right now because back in 2020, when the pandemic hit, our wonderful government, what'd you say?
They stopped them, the repossessions.
Yeah, exactly. And now they're repoing these cars, and they're also this thing called Carvana that was supposed to be this most amazing company that the public is finally figuring out that these people are all about unethical practices. In fact, Gerald, when you listen to my the podcast that's hitting this Tuesday, I just interviewed somebody that had the craziest Carvana horror story. And
there's plenty of them.
There is, but when you read about it and then you literally hear about it firsthand, like they did something so illegal that there were several things that they did illegal, but when you listen to it, it's crazy. But I guess to stay on point, when they're liquidating cars right now, because do you think that they're going to file BK?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And hey, for people that don't know, the Garcias, the father and son, who are the principal owners of Carvana, they own Drive Time. So if you have a Drive Time used car dealership in your city, the company that billed themselves as being the anti-dealer, we don't do any of the things that dealerships do. We're not like that. We don't pressure you into cars. We don't overprice them. Well, essentially, at this point, Drive Time's worth more at Carvana. Essentially, their parent company, that's what they do. That's who they are. Yeah. So the whole thing was a house of cards, I guess a house of glass from the beginning, because there was no there. What they did show, though, is that, kind of going back to what we were talking about with the dealership with 5 Tellurides on the ground, the reason Carvana had success, it's not because dealerships were doing a great job. It's because the dealerships were failing. Carvana was able to sell a car to somebody for more money with zero recon than a dealership who reconned it, who stands behind it, who puts a warranty on it, and is in the town, could sell the car for. So that's something for dealerships to say, well, okay, hang on. Hey, we need to take a look here at what we're doing. We need to reassess how we're treating the customers, because our perception is so bad with the customers. They'll go pay more to a company that's getting blasted online. If you just look an inch below the surface, those stories have been out there the whole time.
Yeah.
For selling people the wrong car, for not being able to provide title, for selling people cars that needed $7,000-$8,000 work once they got them. But they were still selling more cars in a lot of dealerships. So it's a wake-up call, I think, and they're just kind of collapsing under their own weight because of the same reasons. There's not enough cars. The interest rates went up, and they don't have cheap cars, and they were overpaying for the stuff they got because they don't get
right there. They got greedy.
So there's no tenable position.
Yep. They got greedy, and greed will hurt you. Like, they were even competing with iAutoAgent at some point. I actually had, several of my agents are like, oh my gosh, Carvana was giving me more money than than like we could even give. And we're usually between $1,500 to $2,000 more than a dealership. And I'm like, listen, this party's almost over because you can't keep giving people more money.
Then you can
like
sell it for.
Basically more than retail value. And now if you go there, you're going to get pennies on the dollar for your car and number one, you may not ever see the money because they don't have the money. They keep borrowing money. They're $9 billion in debt.
Yeah. Well, they started a program where they were going to buy cars. They were going to list dealerships' cars on their website.
Yep.
And if somebody said they wanted to buy it, Carvana was going to just flat out buy the car from the dealership for the internet price.
Yep.
And then turn around and sell it to the customer. And if the customer backed out, dealership's free and clear. You sold the car.
Right.
They rolled it out. And then as soon as dealerships started saying yes, they went, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. Because it's a horrible idea.
It is a terrible idea. I mean, like anybody could figure that one out. It's like, oh, you want to sell my car? Yeah, I want $1 million for it. Can you give it to me? Yeah, we'll give you $1 million for your car. And then it's like,
I mean, they made this now. And then probably the biggest thing, and the Wall Street Journal called it an albatross on Carvana, was buying ADESA auto auction, a multi-billion-dollar purchase to buy essentially 8% of the business. They bought the physical auction sites for ADESA Auto Auction, which is the number 2 auto auction in the country. Manheim's number 1, and they're owned by the company that owns Kelley Blue Book and Auto Trader and Vin Solutions, a bunch of automotive software companies, Cox Automotive. Mm-hmm. They're number 1 by a mile. ADESA was number 2. ADESA sold 92% of their cars at auction online. ADESA kept that portion of the business. They kept the online part, and they're just posting the cars from dealership lots now.
See, I didn't actually.
Carvana bought the physical auction in 8% of which amounted to 8% of the net sales, but almost all the liability. All the physical sites, the vast majority of the employees. And within days of doing that, every single manufacturer that ran cars at ADESA pulled out and went to Manheim. So no, we're not going to run our cars through Carvana. We're out.
No.
So what they ended up getting was these massive, outdated, basically parking lot storage areas for auto auctions to sell whatever they get in to little independent used car dealerships, because that's the only people that are going to their auction now. So it's just a tremendously massive, horrible investment. And that was third quarter of this year closed. So
yeah, like it was
really bad end of the year for Carvana. I think it was a $2.3 billion purchase.
It was. And then I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. When they did that, I couldn't believe that they actually did that. But as we get moving here, we talked about new cars. We talked about the used cars. We have Gerald Bentley here, absolute expert in this industry. I really appreciate you coming today, Gerald.
Sure.
And for everybody that is listening, please leave any comments or questions below in the comment section, whether you're on our Facebook group page, the Auto Authorities Podcast, whether you're on the Auto Authorities on YouTube, or whether you're just on iTunes. Leave us some comments. We'll personally respond. We bring these podcasts to you raw and uncut. And we want you to know what the real situation, and this Gerald is in the industry right now at a dealership, and he has given you the real skinny on this. And I always love having you on, Gerald. And do you have any other further things that you want to share before we end in about 30 seconds?
Just you can go to YouTube. You can search Wrestling with Sales, Gerald Bentley. That's my auto consulting channel. Talk with personal trainers, athletes, different people in the automotive area, just trying to find analogies from sports to sales and things to help you out. So if you're looking at buying a car or if you're selling anything, definitely worth doing. And heck, you can also check out Las Vegas Wrestling Scene Confidential. That's on YouTube as well. talk to some of the big independent wrestlers in the country every week.
He has really built just an empire in this. I really appreciate you coming back, Gerald, and we will see you guys